Hi there, I'm Keith Robinson, and I'm now president of Intellivision Productions. I started with Mattel Electronics back in 1981, working on the Intellivision video games, and then went with the company that Mattel sold it to, INTV Corporation, doing their packaging and their instruction books. And then I created this company, Intellivision Productions, to buy the rights so that we can continue to release the original games on the new platforms.
Cool, and who came up with the slogan, the closest thing to the real thing?
Well, it's got to be the marketing department back in 1980. The Atari had been first on the market, so they really had a grip on the market with millions of these things out there. And so the question was, how is Mattel going to compete with that? Especially because Mattel Intellivision cost twice as much. It cost $300 compared with $150 for the Atari 2600. So they went with the sports games because they could get games that looked more like the real games. So whereas on the Atari there was no diamond you could see on baseball, on television there was a diamond, and the men were animated, they ran everything. So they hired George Plimpton, who was a sports writer, known for actually participating in sports and writing books and articles about it for Sports Illustrated. They hired him to be the spokesman, and basically he just came out and said, here's Atari baseball, here's Intellivision baseball. Obviously, I don't need to say anymore, this is the one closest thing to the real thing. Once you compare, you'll know. That's the whole, basically the whole campaign. And very quickly we were able to get 20% of the market just on the sports games. So it was a very brilliant move from a marketing standpoint.
Did you meet George Plimpton personally?
I never met him in person, but I did talk to him on the phone when I bought the company.
Okay.
When I bought it, I called him up because I was not sure whether or not he, after that length of time, this was 20 years later, whether he was proud or embarrassed to have been associated with Intellivision, and found out he was quite delighted. He was delighted and kind of amused that people 20 years later would still be interested in the Intellivision games. And he said that, yeah, he really did at the time, and particularly his kids. He said his kids love the skiing game.
Cool. So how do you feel about modern games, and do you think kids are playing these on these consoles for the same reasons they did back when Intellivision was released?
Yes, I think a lot of people have asked the questions like, well, gee, those were primitive games and they've come along with these modern games. Why would they still be into the primitive games? It's because they're really different types of games. It's really a different genre. When the market crashed in 1983 and video games kind of went away for a while, the people who still wanted to play the games, they went with computer games. And computer games introduced a lot of new things. Games became longer, they became story-oriented, you could save games. And so you got away from those simple little arcade-style games of the old days. Now when kids are introduced to those type of games, they don't look at those as the primitive early games of what they have now. This is a totally different genre. So yes, people still love the games that you have now. It's wonderful. You have these 40-hour games, and very complex and immersive, and it's wonderful. But it's also nice to have these little fast games that take like 5 minutes and get reset and play them again. Especially with the new platforms you have now, like the iPads and the iPhones, where you're just your doctor's office or the post office, and I'll play this for 3 minutes.
Yeah. What was your favorite game of all time?
Oh boy. Well, I have to say, really, I think my favorite one was the arcade game, Centipede, which I hate to say it was an Atari game, so.
Yeah, right.
But I just love that game. I just love the trackball, the sounds, the graphics, the colors. It's just wonderful. Whenever I'm at a show when we have a retro thing and somebody's got a real Centipede machine set up, oh yeah, I want to play that. Yeah. So that was my favorite there. But in terms of arcade games or console games at home, on our games, I loved Astro Smash and Night Stalker, and those games are just still, those are the games that it's kind of useful now. When we get a new platform, immediately I go to Astro Smash because I know the timing, I know everything about it, so I can just play for 5 minutes and know that whether or not they've got it right. So it's a lot of fun that way.
Cool. Last question. So thinking back, and this can be outside of Intellivision, what year of your life would you want to relive again, and why?
Are you saying outside of Intellivision? I can't.
It could be anything, just any moment or any year that you thought was a great year in your life.
1983 was a great year, and even though it was the year of the crash and things were going bad, but it was such a heightened, so much was going on because we were trying to save the company, we were going new directions with hardware and software, and the shows in Las Vegas, shows in Chicago, trying to get this new stuff going. Lots going on, huge amount of things, and plus that year they sent me to France for 3 months to run the European office. So 1983 was a pretty exciting year.
Cool. Thank you so much.